Hi, it's Rachel Abbott and welcome back to the Standard Podcast. If you're new here, make sure to hit follow and give us a rating. Coming up...
Cowboy Carter. Beyoncé.
Beyoncé secures the prestigious Grammy Award for Album of the Year for the chart-topping country album Cowboy Carter. Stay tuned for our chat with the London Standard's culture and lifestyle writer, India Block, for all the highlights. Joining us first is the London Standard's political editor, Cecil. Britain has rejected Donald Trump's claim of out-of-line UK-US trade flows as he started hitting several countries with hefty tariffs. Trump has said he might hit Britain with tariffs as he warned the US will impose levies on imports from the European Union pretty soon. The US president announced at the weekend he will impose 25% trade taxes on goods coming from America's nearest neighbours and largest trade partners, Canada and Mexico, as well as a 10% levy on Chinese goods. This comes as the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer travelled to Brussels to meet with EU leaders on Monday, the first time a UK PM has done so since Brexit. Nicholas, Trump appears to have kicked off a global trade war. Could you walk us through the tariffs?
He's putting 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and also some goods from Mexico. And he's slapping 10% tariffs on some goods from China. We're only just into February and tariffs are very much coming thick and fast. The big one that we're looking for is what is he could do on the European Union. Now, he's described the trading relationship there as atrocious, which suggests that he's going to put some pretty hefty tariffs on the EU. And his argument is that there are far more goods coming across the Atlantic from the EU, from the European bloc, than the reverse going from America to the EU. His argument is that field needs to be levelled.
Which EU country will be hit the worst?
I think Germany will be very hard hit. Obviously, it's a big exporter of cars, and it's very much still the powerhouse of Europe, even though its economy is struggling at the moment. Countries across the EU will be hit. European politicians are already warning of retaliation.
And why is that?
Basically, because there's a lot of trade done between the EU and America. And if you look at what's happening in Canada, there's been a really fierce backlash against that. Calls for Canadians to boycott US goods, to buy goods made in Canada instead. So it might sound populist and good for Trump, but this is going to be difficult for him because the thing you've got to remember here is if you impose tariffs on goods, you make them more expensive. And that means that American consumers will have to pay more for their goods. Now, Trump's argument is that in the long term, you bring this manufacturing back to America, and therefore there are more jobs in the United States. But in the short term, it's likely to be inflationary, and basically the American consumer will feel these tariffs in their pocket.
Trump also said in a social media post that the UK is out of line on trade with the US. What did he mean by that?
Well, his words were very interesting on the UK, and they weren't 100% clear-cut, but certainly it appeared very much to be a hint that he doesn't want to hit the UK with tariffs, although he may be playing a slight game here, kind of making it clear that he wants Britain to move closer to America rather than build closer ties with the European Union. That's just some speculation at the moment. He was saying that basically, yes, he's not entirely happy with the arrangements in trade between the UK and the US, but he did stress that he thinks that something can be worked out. That's very different language from what we're hearing of his stance towards the European Union.
And the UK issued a statement on Monday responding to Donald Trump's comments. What did it say, and how far do you think Trump can push the UK and keep a good relationship with his allies?
Well, the UK government are arguing that it's the relationship, the trading relationship across the Atlantic is fair and balanced, and so it's arguing against tariffs. We've already seen on the stock markets in Asia and in Europe have fallen sharply in response to these tariffs moves by Trump. He is causing economic turbulence, he's causing economic uncertainty. There's a widespread belief that free trade is generally good for most people who participate in it. and that imposing tariffs is restrictive and pushes up prices.
And crossing the English Channel, today marked the first time since Brexit that a Prime Minister has attended an EU leaders' meeting, which the Prime Minister has said is a reset between the UK and the European Union. What discussions are on the table? I mean, Trump's going to be a significant topic.
Yes, well, certainly this summit had been billed as a moment when Britain would push its European allies to do more on Ukraine, to further increase the support in terms of economic and military support for Kyiv, and to impose more sanctions on Russia. So basically to try and to turn the tide against Putin regime and his invasion of Ukraine. On the reset, there are a number of areas where Britain is hoping to have closer ties, including security, energy, intelligence sharing to crack down on illegal immigration, and also trade, crucially. Britain and Brussels are not exactly on the same page at the moment. So one thing, Britain wanted a swift deal, concluded particularly on security. Whether that's going to happen, it's not quite clear yet. One area of contention is that some European countries want a mobility scheme for under 30, so for young Europeans that come to Britain. The danger for Keir Starmer here is that if he allowed that, that would be jumped on by reform as a return to free movement. The British government will be very reticent there to give too much ground on a mobility scheme for young people. So there could be some hard bargaining ahead here in terms of what Britain wants, which is closer ties with the European Union after so many people now regard Brexit as a failure.
And when are they hoping to settle any decisions?
Certainly some sources in Brussels are suggesting that they want a big deal. They don't want to do a deal on security and then a deal on trade and so on further down the line. All these negotiations have moving parts, and to conclude one section early might give the advantage to Britain, for example, on security, but then it can be seen as weakening the hand of the European Union. So the suggestion is that Brussels wants a big deal, and that could take more than just a couple of months to do.
For the latest, head to standard.co.uk.